Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday, or whenever you're listening to today's episode. You guys, we have some big news. I am a mother. Maybe you picked up on that from last week by not having an episode be released. But let me tell you, things were going down last Wednesday. I'm so excited to share about really my entire birth experience, but I'm going to skip that this week, and we'll kind of maybe talk about that next week. I'm still, like I had said, deciding how much I want to release podcast episodes while I'm taking this time technically off. The podcast feels like a great outlet for me, and truthfully, I love getting on here and just chatting away. Today we have on Carlee from Clarify Wellness. I actually met Carlee about a year ago, which is actually crazy. We kind of are part of a group that meets every other Wednesday just to talk about being a health coach, different client stories, different goals that we have. Anyway, through all of that, I was able to network and meet Carlee, and she is such a wealth of knowledge. She shares a lot on today's episode about really that emotional eating and how she healed her relationship with food and is still working on her relationship with food. I think something we addressed in this podcast a lot was, you're always going to have those days where maybe you think you've healed your relationship with food and then you notice old patterns come back, which is honestly pretty normal. Even, when you struggle with body dysmorphia or things that just come and go in different seasons of life. A big thing that I like to hone in on is that you don't have to be obsessed or love your body at every season of life, but you need to support it. And I really feel like that is just kind of shown through today's episode. We had a really great conversation. And like I said, I wanted to be able to share something outside of me having a baby this week and just give some light to some other topics, because I think I've talked a lot about pregnancy and I will talk a lot about postpartum and motherhood. And like I said, I'm so excited to share more about that with you, but I'm really excited even more so to share today's episode with you. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a catch up, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but like I had said, I had baby Oliver last Wednesday at 2:32 a.m. and it was a gnarly experience, I will say. Everything went well. We are doing so well, and I appreciate all the kind words and messages that I have gotten from you guys about him and me and just checking up on me. It really does mean a lot. If you've been around from the beginning, it's kind of crazy to think that now I'm a mom. It's honestly, I was telling Nathan today on our drive home, I'm like, my heart is literally bursting. Like I just didn't know that I would love being a mom as much as I love being a mom. And it's only been a week that we've had him and it's gone so fast, but he was born happy and healthy. I am doing well, recovering very well, and just wanted to put that out there in case you're curious or if you've messaged me and I haven't gotten back to you. We are doing well. Again, like I said, I think next week I will probably share the full story, but just bear with me as I enter into this season. Again, I'm taking time off from work, which is really hard. It's kind of a challenge for me. I actually deleted my email from my phone and I'm really just trying to be very present, share a little bit on social media, but for the most part, just exist. And I think it's really hard to do that when you are a go person. And even for me, I'm thinking I still have 2 more months where I won't actively be working, like meeting with clients one-on-one. And it's just really crazy to think that I have 2 months yet to just soak in this time. And that's truly what I plan to do. I know you only have your first baby once. And so I feel like I have the ability to be very undistracted in this season of life, and I'm going to try to do my best with that, and also just find different ways to support my body as my body is changing and as my body's healing and as I'm literally sustaining the life of another person, which just blows my mind that we're able to do that as women. It's just the coolest thing. So enough about that. I know there's so many details that I could share and I will share, but they will be coming in the following weeks. Otherwise, let's jump into today's episode with Carlee. I really think you guys are going to love this one. All right, so I'm so excited today. I'm having Carlee on the podcast. Carlee, thank you so much for being willing to do this and be on an episode. I'm so excited to learn more about your story because I feel like we've talked and we've connected, but I haven't really heard like the nitty-gritty details about what you've been through in your whole health journey, which is always a really big question to start with. But I know there's a lot of factors that probably led you to get certified in integrative health coaching. So could you just kind of take us through from the beginning, kind of when maybe you started to notice issues or symptoms in your own health and kind of how that led you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to chat. So I have honestly struggled for as long as I can remember with like a slew of things. You know, it started with anxiety, depression, all of that type of stuff. But I always struggled with body image. I just don't think I noticed it until I got older. You know, I would be with friends in even like elementary school in a bikini with all my friends in bikinis, and I would be wearing a tankini because I wouldn't be comfortable. So I feel like that always started, but I just thought it was kind of normal and didn't realize like how insecure it was making me. So through middle school, high school, college, I always struggled with body image. I did grow up around like a lot of dieting. My mom was always on diets, my aunts, my mom's friends. It's just, you know, what we all grew up watching. So when I got to a point where I was like, oh, I want to lose weight, then I kind of got into that cycle as well. So that was more in like high school into college. My my high school senior year, junior to senior year, I had lost a lot of weight. I was on a medication that just made me not hungry, and it honestly had a really negative effect because I was literally eating like like not even a meal a day. Like it was really horrible for me, and my hormones were off. Like I was losing my period. There were so many things that just didn't feel right. But in my head, I was losing weight. I was happy, right? And like I was finally this smallest version of myself. I went to school, like into college. I was all confident because I had this new body, and then I realized it wasn't realistic. I had gone off the medication I was on because it wasn't making me feel good, and there was no need for me to be on it anymore. And then I obviously gained all of that weight back because my metabolism was all messed up, and I gained like double the weight back from obviously just college life. And I didn't drink a lot in high school, so once you start drinking more in college and late night eating, I just had no knowledge. And basically what would happen in college is I would like come home for break and I would start a diet. And I like vividly remember getting like not protein, sorry, like diet bars and like hiding them in my closet. And it makes me so sad because one, I wasn't even following this diet correctly. And two, like clearly I shouldn't have been doing it. I was hiding it from all of my friends, which like just makes me so sad to think about, especially now doing what I do. It's so crazy. And like I love helping that age because I think it's so important to know like you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on diets, even if your mom's doing it or if that older generation is doing it. So that was kind of a cycle for a while. It was kind of on and off, but even when I would lose weight, like I would still hate my body and just never felt good. I hated working out, hated moving my body. I was constantly comparing myself to others. And then my senior year of college, I was still going through this cycle. And I got in a really like toxic, abusive relationship, which was the worst thing to ever happen to me, but also the best because like it really, so I went through like a year and a half in that relationship where like I completely lost myself through it all. I lost friends, like there was stress between family members. But once I went through like that turning point to leave that relationship, that's kind of when everything changed. I had moved to New York City because I had just graduated college, and I like just really found holistic health. But as I found holistic health, I did realize how important whole foods were, but that's when I started that like restricting and binge cycle with natural foods. So I was done with like the diets of the bars and the shakes. But then I moved more towards like the obsessive calorie counting and obsessive moving my body. So that was really tough. But I was losing weight, so I was happy. But then my depression and anxiety was 10 times worse. I would walk on the treadmill for like 15 minutes and literally felt like I was gonna topple over. Like I was just so weak. I was in a marketing job, like crazy in the city. I was miserable. And I was just like really restricting on the weekends. And then like I would go out with friends and just like stuff my face to where I would be like so sick the next day. And it was just really unhealthy. It kind of came down to me like losing my period and realizing I was really under eating. And like honestly overworking out too, where I was like, okay, this isn't healthy. And I honestly took like a year and a half off of dating and like just like focused on myself, worked with like finally invested in working with a coach, a nutritionist, a life coach, a therapist, like everything. And I made sure that they were like more the holistic route versus just like, here's this medication, here's that medication. And really realized that like fueling your body with the right foods, balancing plates and moving your body, but like finding ways that you enjoy moving your body is life-changing. I realized a lot of my restriction was because like I always thought carbs are bad, right? But then once I started incorporating carbs onto my plate, I'm like, wait, I'm actually eating more, but it felt like I was eating more, but it felt like healthy. And I was like, what's happening? Like, why am I seeing such healthy change in my body? I was like, these are all things that I've been told that were going to negatively impact me, but I'm like, I feel great. So it was like, there was just, I remember like one day where I was like, wait, like this is working and I actually have such a love for health. And that's when I decided to like I didn't leave my job right away, but I decided to look into a different industry, which is what I'm doing now. And that's when I decided to go back, take classes to become a nutrition health coach. And then I also got specializations in hormone health, emotional eating, and now mindful eating as well, because I just like realized how food is connected to emotions, but then also how like our body image is a huge part. Like I still have bad body image days. Like I'm very open on my Instagram, always very open to my clients, my friends. Like I don't have days, like not every day is perfect. No day is perfect. I still struggle. But healing your relationship with food and your body and like getting to a place of just feeling content, I think is one of the best feelings. And like everyone deserves to feel that way. And our bodies are constantly changing. So like that's where learning about hormones is really important. And just like truly learning about what makes you feel best versus doing what your friend is doing, I think is one of the most important things. So that's kind of like how everything evolved. So I've always struggled, but like helping others has made me just so fulfilled in what I do and the growth. And like I always tell people, you're always growing. Like if you ever see someone that's fully healed, they're probably not. Like I feel like we've even talked about this before. Like you're just never fully healed. And I think that's important, but like it is possible to grow and learn and heal through it and nourish your body in the right way.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that individualized approach too. Like even when you were looking to heal, it wasn't like, well, I'm going to try the Weight Watchers diet because that's a one size fit all. It was like, no, I'm going to get a lifestyle coach and a therapist and nutritionist and have a team of people that are working together for your, like the betterment of your health, right? I think that's just like something we maybe don't always see the value in because like you said, we're looking at what our roommates are doing, what our friends are doing, and oh, well, my friend took this and they lost all this weight. And I feel like at the root of everything, and I've actually thought about this a lot recently with clients I'm working with, the root for a lot of people is like that overall desire to lose weight. Like that is like what people, I always say, I'm like, I don't specialize in weight loss. Like that is not the route that I take things, although it's a great benefit. Like that's not my hyper focus, but I feel like that is so ingrained into us that we always need to be in that constant state of wanting to lose weight.
Yeah,
and It's
so
crazy.
true.
It's like, and it, even when we don't think that's the end goal, like it still comes up, like asking clients, like, what's your goal? Maybe even weight loss doesn't come up, but I feel like down the road, it's eventually like, well, I still haven't lost weight. And that's what I really wanted to see. It's like, okay, but how, so I guess my question for you is, how do you, in your own journey, you know, I kind of sense there was like this restrictiveness and then maybe lack of restriction and then back to restriction.
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of navigate that to get to the point now where you aren't in a point of restriction, even if, you know, and you can share if weight loss is maybe your goal or if that's something you should focus on, but how have you found more like of a balance because you've kind of been on both ends of the spectrum?
Yeah. So it's so interesting you asked this because like I recently, like a year ago, rebranded. I used to like in everything say specialization in emotional eating and weight loss, which I can really help people lose weight, but I've changed it to weight management because one, I think weight loss is such a broad term. Are you losing weight? Are you losing inflammation? Are we just stressed? Are we not sleeping well? Like there's so many things that go into it. And this is, I know you do blood work for clients and that's been like life-changing for me too, right? Is your liver working properly? What are your hormones like? There's so many things that go in. So I am not going to say, oh, you'll 100% lose 25 pounds with me because one, I'm not making that promise because I have worked with nutritionists or coaches before that promise me that and it doesn't happen. And that's a really uncomfortable position. And I believe that like we need to figure out deeper goals. The other thing is now that I work with mainly clients that struggle with relationship with food and emotional eating, I'm not saying that it's not possible to lose weight and heal your relationship with food at the same time because it is possible. But we will focus on your relationship with food and getting to the root cause of the emotional eating way before we're only focusing on weight loss. Like, and that is kind of where my business has evolved because I was always trying to, at the beginning of my business, and it's almost been 4 years. So like at the beginning, I was still going through my journey. So I think that weight loss thing was more of a thing for me too. And like promising these clients that, and yeah, they lost weight, but then they came to me a year later because they were binging. And I'm like, okay, I need to switch something in my business here. Something's not working. So that's where I really started leaning more into the relationship with food because it takes time and patience. And I think that's just so important to remember. So going back to your question, it's interesting because obviously like I have old photos pop up all the time. And I'd be lying if I said that old pictures of me from 6 years ago, where I'm fitting into size 0 jeans, I'm like, oh wow, I look great. But what I always do is I think back to how I felt mentally during that time. I would still look in the mirror and I would be so mean to myself. I would complain all the time. And most importantly, like I wasn't enjoying life. I was like doing endless cardio, which like now I know like I feel so much stronger when I'm lifting weights and doing Pilates. Like I'm not gonna go do a HIIT workout because that doesn't feel good. And I was just like really trying to like go by the books or what I was seeing on social media. And I think what's important is like whenever I see an old body of mine, I always try and remember like your mindset was so different and you weren't able to go out with friends on a Tuesday night and enjoy a slice of pizza and salad. Like 100%. I had no balance at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. And I've even like you talking about going back and looking at old photos now too with like pregnancy. I always think like if I wouldn't have healed my relationship with food and really my body, not saying it's at a point where it's perfect, but it's in a much better state. If I would have tried to get pregnant 3 years ago, I would have been so miserable in my body because I still look back at photos. I'm like, I want to go back and slap that version of myself across the face. Like, it makes me so mad. I was like, I vividly can look at that picture and remember like, oh, I hated my body. And I thought that I had so much fat bulging from my pants. And you look and there's like literally nothing. Right. And it's like, why do we do that to ourselves? And I think that's what's hard. Because your story and my story, I feel like kind of parallel in a lot of ways, but it's so hard when people also come for weight loss or have that as a goal. And I've only really experienced weight loss in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I could walk you through it in a very unhealthy way, But like long term, like you said, healing your relationship with food is going to impact the rest of your life and honestly the generations. Like hearing your story with having your mom be on diets, your aunts, your grandma, like that directly, whether it was subconscious or consciously, like did affect you and continues probably to affect you to this day. And it took a lot of healing with your relationship with food in your body to get to where you are right now. Yeah. And I think like that generational impact is what we have to recognize when we heal that relationship with food. Is it's not just doing it because we want to feel good with food, but it's also going to impact our daughters or our kids down the road. So it's just, it's tricky to get people to that point. And I guess, how do you walk clients through that then if they come to you with wanting to heal their relationship with food or knowing that weight loss is maybe a goal? Like, what is your first approach with those clients to heal that relationship with food?
Yeah. My first main thing is like, we're going to come up with like 3 main goals, right? We can make one related to weight loss. That's okay. But I never put a number on it. Right. I'll do like feel good in X pair of jeans, or like, you know, buy something that they like, a certain dress that they've been wanting, more in terms of that. Because again, a lot of times, I'm sure you see this with, I know you specialize with inflammation, like the scale might not move, but our inflammation goes down and our clothes fit differently. So I try not to focus too much on like the number on the scale. That's another thing, like ditching the scale is life-changing. 100%. And just going by how you're feeling. But then we also come up with other goals, right? Like not binging on a Saturday night. And they'll be more specific. But it usually comes down to them feeling good and them feeling like they're in control. It's something I see a lot is people coming to me, and not that they're not just out of control with eating, but it's relationships, it's finances, it's like social situations, it's with work, right? Overworking themselves, not sleeping. Like, it's very broad and there's a lot of different things. So the first thing we do is figure out like why they're emotionally eating, and also figure out if it's like more disordered eating, or like what is it that they're struggling. Are they binging? What people don't realize is emotional eating can be not eating. So I've had clients that come to me and they have lost 30 pounds because they're not eating and they need to gain that weight back and learn how to eat again. And one thing I do say is like, I don't specialize in eating disorders, just disordered eating, which they can be confusing. But for example, if someone is binging and purging, I will set them up with a therapist to work with as well, because I'm not certified in that. Right. But if they're just overeating or feeling emotional about stuff, I always tell people that they should be working with a therapist along with me. But usually we need to find like, why is it happening? And usually most clients will have like 2 to 3 triggers. So it could be something related to a trauma from the past, which is something I see a lot. It can be related to like what I had, right? With obviously I had a trauma, but then I also just had that living constantly watching people diet. So I thought that was the normal. So just getting out of that mindset. You also see like the people that only emotionally eat when their boss is mean to them. And those are like, honestly, like, I don't want to say easier clients, but those are the clients where we're like, okay, we know exactly why this is happening. Every time your boss emails you, you get stressed and you eat a bag of Skittles. Right. So we need to just work on that situation. The other aspect of things is, are you eating correctly, right? Are you eating balanced meals? Are you waking up and drinking coffee first thing in the morning? Because that's why you're overeating. Like I literally was talking to a client yesterday and she was saying that she was really emotionally eating like the past week, and we've been working together for a while. And I said to her, why, right? I always like try and have them answer it first. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. And her answer, like right away, she said, oh, well, I haven't had breakfast in 3 days. I'm like, there you go. Yep. So like we literally ordered protein bars, even though that's not my first option of a breakfast, but her life is really crazy right now. She's going to make some hard-boiled eggs too, like just very simple ways, because breakfast can be really overwhelming for people. I know incorporating breakfast changed my life, and I don't know what I would do without it now. It sets you up for success. So it's kind of those 2 parts of the emotion, but then also what are your plates looking like as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting that there's like kind of those 3 common threads that you see within the clients that come to you. With the, anybody that comes to you and let's say they like live with a chronic dieter, like how do you approach that? Because I think that was something for, me in college is like you maybe see people around you that are always on a diet and it's like, well, now I'm trying to heal my relationship with food and not chronically diet, but I see everyone else doing it. So how do you balance that if the people around you are kind of directly impacting that negative relationship with food?
I think a lot of it depends on like what type of situation you are in, right? If you're living with a bunch of girls or something like that, like in college, that can definitely be harder. But like my biggest thing is communication. Like a perfect example is I'm working with a college student and I'm like, and she's been struggling because her roommate or her suite mate is like, she'll overeat a lot at night. And she feels like she's like, if I'm sitting on the floor with her, and we're working on healing her binging. So when she's sitting on the floor with her and the roommate is overeating, she feels like she has to eat just as much as her. And she doesn't know that she's working with me. And I'm like, I want you to be able to, even if you don't give the nitty gritty, right? Just share with her that this is something you're working on, because what you need to remember is you could be helping that person too. And I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, I'll use myself as an example. Love my husband so much, but he is a chronic wearer of food. He's loves the gym. He counts his macros. We've gotten a lot better with it. I'm going to respect what he wants to do, right? It's what makes him feel good. But when we first started living together, it was very triggering to me. It'll still be triggering sometimes. I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yes.
But like we would sit down and I would have very normal conversations where I'm like, when you do this in front of me, it is triggering. You can do what you need to do, but like, please don't do that or say those words in front of me. So communication is huge, but it's also like to see how he's evolved by living with me, right? And obviously now I do this for a living, so it's very different than when I was like really honing into healing my own relationship with food.
Right.
But like, he like hardly weighs his stuff. Now our scale actually just broke and I'm like, let's just like not get a new one. Like, why don't you just try? And he's been like, great. I'm like, you've been weighing your food for 4 years plus, you know what weighs, what it looks like.
Yes.
Like what a chicken portion looks like.
Yes.
And you know, his is more hitting protein than restriction, like stuff like that. But that can still be really triggering for someone. So I would say communication, and like, if that makes you uncomfortable, think to yourself, like, you could be helping a person too. Like, he'll always say, he was like, I would never eat sushi on a Wednesday night, and now we do. Like, just little things like that where you are able to heal. And it's like such a, it's such a freeing feeling being able to do that. So yeah, I would say number one is communication for sure. And then also working with someone and leaning on them. Like, clients have communication access to me all the time. So my college clients, like, if they're struggling, they'll go into the bathroom, leave me a voice note, and I send them one back. And it's just like that instant relaxation for them.
Well, yeah, and I want to touch on that relationship piece too, because now you obviously are married to your husband, like you're in a good, positive relationship. But I also know a piece of your story was being in a negative relationship and how that impacted. And I think that's something that I want to talk about because we don't maybe always recognize we're in a toxic or harmful relationship until we get out of it. But also we don't maybe realize the impact that has on our emotions and how we like lean on food or how we avoid food because of the dynamic of that relationship. So if we could go back to that piece of your story too, could you kind of walk through like how, I'm sure there's so many factors, but even like how your eating habits changed or what you noticed came up when you were in that relationship, even not to compare to what you're in now, but like compared to the point that you're at now where you're in like a very healthy, secure relationship and the difference that felt emotionally and like physically, the toll it took on your body.
Yeah. And I love that you just asked that because I think like I've been going to therapy forever. And I think my therapist, like every therapist I've spoken to because I connect with a lot of therapists as well, like they always say there's little traumas and big traumas, but they can add up to be the same, which like is always so amazing to me. And like the word toxic, like it's so funny because I like hate that word, but I also use it all the time because it's so important. Like, I have had a toxic relationship with a boy. I've had a toxic relationship with friends. I've had a toxic relationship with food, with myself. Like, that word is such a strong word, I think. But when you say it, like, I feel it mentally and I feel it physically. Like, it's such an extreme word. But it really describes how those situations were. So when I was in that relationship, it was my senior year of college. So, like, it was that's like a weird age. You're about to graduate, I was moving to a new city. Like, there was a lot of changes that were going to be happening. So I wanted to feel my best. What I would say the biggest changes I saw were like, and this is, I like used to always struggle to talk about it. And now I want to share it with the world, because if you're ever feeling like you're stuck in a relationship, like, you have to know that it's okay to get out, and you need to lean on someone to be able to get out. But what I will say is, and this is the same thing with like weight loss or wanting to go through a wellness journey, you might not be ready until you're ready. Like, I was in it for way longer than I should have been.
Yeah.
And the outside noise, like, meant nothing to me, right? I would have friends sit me down, say that he's not treating me well. I didn't care. It's the same thing as being sat down and saying, oh, your cholesterol's high, and you not being ready to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Until you kind of get to a tipping point where you're like, okay, I need to be done.
Yeah.
But I would say, being in that relationship, I struggled with my body and my self-worth before that already, which is probably why I leaned on that relationship, because, you know, at the beginning of those types of relationships with like a narcissist, you're very manipulated into being like, oh, they love me, they feel this way about me. And then as things get worse, you're like in a domino effect, kind of, and things will be great one day and horrible the next. And it's interesting because I always relate it to like how I was with food, right? I would restrict and then I would binge. And it's like, it was the same thing in the relationship. Like, I would be like, okay, I'm going to be done. And then I would like be like, nope, I love him, I want to be with him because he treats me right for 1 minute, and that overdoes the, you know,
all the
hours of horrible conversations. But it was definitely afterwards where I realized like how much was stripped away from me. Like, you know, he was cheating through the whole relationship. Like, there were certain things like that where when you're cheated on, and I've had a lot of people close to me cheated on, I've been cheated on a few times, and like, it is probably one of the most worthless like feelings you'll ever feel, because they're choosing someone else over you. So that, I think, like, lives deep inside me, and it's something I'm continuing to work on. But like, now being in the relationship I am, you just realize like how you deserve to be treated and how you deserve to like feel like you're worth something. And I think that's something that you can also, I'm going to bring it back to like relationship with food, because I really do think it connects. Like, if you are ever uncomfortable in a social situation around food, or anything like that, like, do something about it. Get the help, because I think that's so important. And like, we don't deserve to feel that way. And that's something I didn't notice until I got out of that relationship. Like, and now that I'm in the healthy relationship I am, like, thinking about a year and a half that I was feeling that way makes me so, you know how you said, like, you just want to slap your old self? Like, that's what I say about, like, that old self of her, because, like, it just makes me so mad. I'm like, how was I going through this? But unfortunately, like, you are so whipped by these people, and this can be a relationship, this can be a friendship, this can be a relationship with like a work environment, and then the food aspect as well. I think it's really important to like take a step back and like remember your self-worth and like why you're on this earth. And that's exactly why I switched industries and I'm doing what I'm doing today, because I think it's so important for people to feel like they're worth it. So yeah, that's like the main thing. But I would say it definitely takes a toll and like confuses your body. Like I said, like right when I got out of the relationship, I didn't have my period. Yeah. I was like at like a very weird weight. Like I would lose and then gain, and it was because I was restricting and binging. It also like really affected my relationship with alcohol, which like I never struggled with that, but like it's not even that I would drink too much, but when I would drink, I would like get like not even like very drunk, but like weird drunk. Like I would get really emotional. I don't drink anymore because of like how I would feel. But I think it was because I was so like malnourished, not just through food, but like probably wasn't drinking enough water. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't like handling my stress well. So I think just like looking at your body as a whole, like we don't connect relationships to weight, but they are very connected.
Yeah. Well, even thinking about like when you enter into a relationship that's maybe not the most healthy. I mean, that was my experience too. When I entered into that relationship and was in that for 3.5, 4 years, right? It was because I was already at a point where I didn't like my body. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like things about me. So then I noticed, and I've noticed patterns like this within other people, is like then you feel like a connection to somebody who maybe you think is treating you right, and that's a normal relationship. And then you look at it from an outside perspective once you finally get out of it, and you're like, there were so many things in that relationship that were not normal, like that are not normal to happen. But I feel like it does stem from kind of how we maybe even grow up, like you're saying, like that connection between food and relationships, which is why like I think it's so valuable that moms, but also if you are young and you're maybe still in college or in high school, like that if you notice you're having like a very negative relationship with food, or your mom or your grandma or your aunts had negative relationships with food, and that is impacting you in any way, that there's something that you should do about that, because I really think it will then kind of determine like how you approach relationships, intimate relationships, and look for a partner or a spouse. Like that is just so connected. I've never really like thought about it that way until you were talking, but it is like how you grew up around food, what you see about food, what you see about bodies and how we should treat our bodies, then is how you kind of expect somebody else to treat your body. And it's not like that correlation can either be positive or it can be very, very negative.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I always say, like, I feel like within the past, like, honestly, I like gained a lot of respect for myself, obviously, when I was going through that, but like more within the past, like 2 to 3 years, I feel like I've grown even more into myself and like learning just more to stand up for myself in situations. Even like, I don't know if you've heard of the let them theory, but like it's my new thing because I think it's so true. Like you can't do everything for everyone and you can't save everyone. But I think like the biggest thing with that too is when you respect yourself more, others are going to respect you. Like I've been like, yes, I'm talking about this relationship that I was in, which obviously was like a love relationship and it was like so emotionally abusive. But then you also look at friendships and things like that. I'm very lucky to have grown up with a very close family where I didn't grow up with any toxicity around any of that. So like going through that relationship was like a whole new world for me. But then I would notice like certain friendships where I'm like, this friendship is not serving me. This friendship is not making me feel good. And it's the same thing with the food, right? Like, it's just like you need to really be in tune with how you feel. And if something, I forget if it was like a friend or a therapist, someone told me this once and they were like, if you ever feel the feeling of unsafe that you did in that relationship, then you need to take a step back. And you need to reevaluate the situation. And like the amount of times that I have felt that and now I'm like, okay, not worth my time, or like let's talk about this, is insane. So like I always say, like it sucks to be in that, right? Like you just said you were in it for a while too, and as horrible as it is, like I think it teaches you what that feeling of unsafe is like. And then like you just slowly take the steps to heal like each part of you. But yeah, I always say like when I have kids one day, I'm going to have them look in that mirror and say affirmations. And it's not that I grew up with, like, my mom would always call me beautiful. My dad would always call me beautiful. But I would hear my mom or my dad commenting on their own weights or trying these diets. And I'm like, I'm going to be so aware. I mean, you're pregnant, right? I'm sure you're like training your brain to be like, okay, I'm not going to comment on my body like that when like my kid's around, because we pick up on things like,
Yeah.
I think, what is it, like age like 2 or something? I don't know if you know this, but I know it's like a very young age where like you literally take every single thing you are hearing. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, even like I've heard, and I need to do more research to actually back this up, but how you speak to yourself and like the thought and the mental, how you're doing mentally while you're pregnant directly impacts your child in the womb as well. I've heard that. I obviously can't confirm that that's 100% true, but I've heard that, and it's like makes you just so much more aware. And I think with men and like with sons and daughters too, because I kind of forget that men struggle with this as well. I don't know how many male clients you have. I've had very, very few. But it's not just women that struggle with this. It's men as well. Like hearing your dad talk about his weight or your mom talk about their weight. And I think that it's so normal for us to talk about that and comment on that. But when you have kids around or kids present, it's kind of like that balance of, yeah, we should be aware of our bodies. And I always say, you don't have to love your body all the time, but you need to support it throughout all stages of life. There's
Body
a difference
neutrality,
between...
It's like my thing. I say
yes.
I've been changing like body or like self-love to body neutrality because like, yeah, if someone's saying they love their body all the time, they're not. Like, no. And that's not going to happen. You're going to have days, especially as females, our bodies are changing all the time.
Right.
It's so interesting because I also don't have tons of male clients. I do take them. But whenever I've had a male client, like, it like weirdly breaks my heart more because it's like, I feel like they need to be so silent about how they're feeling. But like, guys struggle just as much as females do. They just hide it more and like approach it in a different way. So yeah, it's always like so interesting to look at that. But we need to remember that boys or men are feeling the same way that we might be feeling too. It's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you be willing to share kind of how you're doing right now in your health journey? Like how you're feeling mentally, physically, if there's any other things, because I think as coaches, sometimes I try never to put on the facade that I have it all figured out, but we can maybe be expected to have it all figured out because we are helping other women and men through this. But where are you at right now with like your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, and your overall health?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm so open about it, and like when I post on Instagram, like there's been times where like someone will like message my mom and be like, "Is she okay?" And I was like, "This is her job." They're like, "Well, why is she sharing that if she wants to get clients?" My mom's like, and this is so accurate. She's like, clients want to work with her because she is so open about not being perfect.
100%.
Like I always look for a therapist that like has been through something.
Yes.
Like when my coach or therapist or nutritionist says like, yeah, I've struggled with that too. It's such like a calming feeling knowing that you're not alone and they know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, and they're not just also going by the book on what they should tell you to do because they've probably experienced it themselves.
Exactly. So it's just like crazy to think about. So how am I feeling now? So obviously we have good and bad days. I've recently actually started working with like a naturopathic doctor a few months ago, just because like I still wasn't feeling 100%. Like I would work out, I'd be really tired. And I was feeling my body with all of the stuff that you feel your body with. And I actually found out that my liver was really off, which I know we've discussed because I know that you do a lot with this, but my liver levels were really off, which like can also cause like a change in hormones and estrogen. So there was things deeper in me that were off. And like now I am, doing more natural things, castor oil packs. I think we're going to get a sauna, which I'm really excited about, like being more aware of my sleep, some supplements, but just short term, because I don't believe that you should be on supplements 24/7 or at least the same ones all the time. But I think they can help in aiding certain things. And like, I changed my 0% yogurt to full fat yogurt, and I'm eating more red meat, which I thought was always like so bad for me. And it's so crazy that like now I'm feeling great, and that's what my body was missing. So I'm kind of going through my own health journey right now in terms of that stuff, but I believe that if I didn't heal my relationship with food, I would not be like thriving the way I'm thriving right now.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't be able to like eat a bite of steak, right? But I know and I now see how that's changing my body and how it's making me feel. And it's just like incredible, and it's so accurate to show that like everyone's body is different, and also that our bodies change. Like, I remember years ago, red meat didn't make me feel good. But like your hormones change, things change. And I think like, so I'm just going through that process right now, but like in terms of my relationship with food, I'm in a really good spot. Like, I've just went on like 3 bachelorette parties in a row, and like I actually got so emotional on one of the plane rides coming home, because I was like, old me would have never been able to actually enjoy these weekends and gone out and enjoyed. And it's just like such a good feeling. It's also a really good feeling because, like I said, I don't really drink. Being able to say no and not feeling insecure about that to alcohol has been like an incredible feeling. So like, if anyone's listening to this and you don't enjoy drinking, or you don't, even if you don't enjoy a certain food or something, and you feel like you need to say yes just to say yes, like, don't be afraid to say no. You're going to feel so much better saying no. So that's like great. Body neutrality, body image changes. I'm in a way better mindset. I actually just saw this thing, and it was like, you don't need to change your body. You need, or maybe I posted about it, I forget, but you don't need to change your body. You need to change your mind. And it's so true. Like, the amount of times that I went chasing weight loss, and then like, if I am consistent with like affirmations 3 times, like 3 to 5 times a week, I'm like, wait, I love myself more this week, but I didn't do anything about my food. I was changing my mindset. So right now I feel like I'm in a pretty good space, but like continuing to grow and learn, and like, you know, helping other people makes me feel great. Like, seeing changes in my clients daily makes me feel so amazing, just making an impact. So I would say I'm in a pretty good spot right now. But like, continuing to grow and learn and heal as the day goes on. And I think it's always going to be like that. And our bodies are changing. I mean, like, things change. So yeah, it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. Well, and the evolution too, like you said, if you were on this like maybe liver supporting protocol, you wouldn't maybe feel super comfy there if it was even 4, 5, 6 years ago, because you had to evaluate your relationship with food first before, because I know sometimes with liver, like there's things you do kind of need to remove for a period of time. And so that remove process can be really, really scary if you've always been in that restriction mindset. So how you've evolved, and I think that's important for people to hear, is that yes, maybe you could get blood work done and you could show like your liver is not functioning optimally, but if your relationship with food is still not healed, if you have chronic amounts of stress and it's impacting not just your emotional health but your physical health as a result, yeah, you could fix your liver, you could support your liver, but like, again, you have to come back to your mind and like, where is your mind right now? And that is kind of that starting point of like, part of the foundations is building up how you view food, your relationship with food, your emotional eating patterns, and then you can work towards those more like, quote, advanced like protocols, which is just really cool to hear like your evolution with that. And I like what you said about alcohol. I feel like we could do a whole podcast just on alcohol, because it's something that I've pretty much removed completely. Obviously now I have to remove it because I'm pregnant. But before that, like I would say when I was in my worst state, I was probably drinking the most. And it wasn't even a ridiculous amount, but it was enough where like, we also know how it impacts your gut microbiome and how your gut microbiome affects the amount of serotonin produced in your brain. So like affects your mental health. Like there are so many ways that you could have a conversation on alcohol, but I think, like you said, if there's something that doesn't feel aligned, doesn't feel comfortable for you, having that confidence to then not do that thing can be a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it's so interesting. And the other thing I want to just quickly mention too, because you said like everything leads up. Like I used to like always struggle with like skin rashes, acne, stuff like that too. And that was I actually went through a gut protocol a while ago for that. And it like literally changed my skin and like made me realize what triggers it. But a lot of that was from restriction and binging, like of sugar and stuff like that. But what's interesting is when I got this liver and like the hormone stuff back, you know, you think I'm eating so healthy, like for years, why is this happening? And the doctor literally like went through my whole history. He's like, It could be from your restriction because your metabolism is off. It could be from what you were eating years ago that messed it up. It could be from the birth control you were on, the depression medicine that you've been on and off of for years. Like, and I'm not against, if you need medication, I'm not against it. Like, I believe there's certain people that need it. I was always on it, but like when I got to a point where I was like, I want to see what my life is like without it. And now seeing how it's affected my liver and stuff like that, I'm not saying I might never need to go on it, right? That's a chemical imbalance. But the food we eat, the movement, the sleep, that also is a huge, like you said with the serotonin, like that is a huge impact on it. So to hear that like everything I did in the past that I thought was helping me is now affecting my liver and hormones, which like when I got pregnant, those things are really important to be healthy. So it's just crazy to think like, you know, I'm going to be 29, like each thing that brings us to where we are, like you're always going to be learning and your body's always going to be changing. So I just wanted to like bring that back because I think it's so important to remember that like things might work for you 5 years ago, but now it might be different. And I think that's just what we need to like remind everyone because we're always changing.
Yeah. And that the process takes time. Like even I notice like sometimes too as a coach, I'm like, okay, it's been 6 months. Like, gosh, I really wish this symptom would go away. What am I not correlating or like correlating this symptom to? And we can rack our brains. And then sometimes we have to recognize like it just takes time. Like when I was healing chronic pain, I have people come to me and after like a few months, they're like, but my back still hurts. And it's like, it took me 2 years to figure out what I needed to do and build the strength to support my spine so that my back didn't hurt. Like, I think it's just always recognizing that although we don't always want to hear it, maybe in the moment, like you should be, if you want to support your body in a holistic fashion, you have to be also dedicated to the journey it's going to take you on. And not put a time limit on it. I think that's so different than like diet programs because there is usually like lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Like, okay, yeah, but like you said, even if you do that now, 5 years down the road, your metabolism might be negatively impacted because for 30 days you ate absolutely nothing and only did cardio. Like, so it's just like thinking about how you can take the approach long-term to support your body versus short-term, which I know you and I are both very much like long-term focused, not short, quick fixes, because I don't think in the long run that really helps anyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also remembering, like, when you are going to work with a coach, like, we don't have magic wands. And that's something I tell people all the time. Like, I've had clients that work with me for 6 months to a year even, or sometimes just 3 months. And, like, we see huge change. And then, you know, it doesn't happen a lot, but I have had clients come back to me and they're like, oh, I relapsed with emotional eating, or I've been eating like a bag of Pringles every single night. Like, I thought working with you, that wasn't going to happen. And I'm like, just because you worked with me doesn't mean that it's never going to happen again. Like, we constantly need to put in the work. Like, that's why I offer a monthly check-in. I check in with old clients all the time because, like, if you don't keep those habits, right? I wish we had magic wands, but if you don't keep those habits, we have to do it, right? We have to keep those habits every day. So if you don't keep those habits, your changes that you felt, they might not last forever. Like you said, like with back pain, like if someone might work with you for 6 months, not feel their back pain anymore, and then 2 months it comes back, there's probably a reason why it's coming back, right? So I think that's like so important. I'm so glad you mentioned it because long-term change is like huge, and it's a forever, like we're forever evolving, we're forever changing. And yeah, I think we just need to like be easy on ourselves sometimes and give ourselves grace. And like if a symptom that you once felt is coming back, think to yourself, like, why is this happening? Right? Am I overworking myself? Have I been restricting myself of certain foods? More stuff like that, and figuring out the why, because usually there's a reason.
Yeah, 100%. Your body doesn't just decide to, like, quote, fail you. I always say, like, our bodies are never failing us, although it can feel like that. Like, there's typically, I mean, there always is a link to why you're having a symptom. It just sometimes can take longer to figure out what it is, too.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Carlee, I have loved this conversation so much. Can you share kind of about your business, how people can get connected with you, where people can find you to reach out if they have questions or just want to connect with you on social media too?
Yeah, for sure. So social media, it's just at Clarify Wellness. I use Instagram way more than anything else. So I would suggest just Clarify Wellness, or clarifywellness.com is my website. You can find it on my Instagram. But I offer different packages. You can see them all on my services page or work with me page on my website. But I offer like some short-term, long-term, and then also one-off sessions, plus like pantry cleanouts where we clean out your pantry, but we also make sure to add in foods that you enjoy. It's not like a full restriction pantry clean out. It's kind of more of an enjoyable pantry clean out. So I offer a few different things, but you can also just honestly DM me, tell me that you heard from me through this podcast. I will actually give a discount for anyone that wants to work with me through after they heard the podcast. So just like DM me, and that's probably the best way. And I do a free 15-minute consultation to make sure it's a right fit. So whether you're struggling with emotional eating, relationship with food, hormone health, weight management, body neutrality, all the stuff we just talked about, reach out to me because I'm here to help.
Perfect. I love that. Yes, and I'll put all of that in the description of today's episode too, so you can get connected with Carlee and just check out all the amazing things that she's doing. So Carlee, I always wrap up the podcast with a signature question, which I did not actually give you pre-hints on, but often on this podcast we talk about how your purpose is not, correlated to a specific job or role, but it's the characteristics that you have that allow you to live a purposeful life. So Carlee, what would you say is your purpose?
Oh, I love that. And I kind of like that you put me on the spot. It's interesting because you said it doesn't always relate to the job, but I really believe my purpose is helping others. Like, I've just always done it. Like, even as a friend, it's just always like, it's kind of how I grew up. My dad's a doctor. My mom has always helped people. She was a social worker. So I think I just grew up around that. So I really think my purpose is helping others and like, just like making people feel good about themselves and continuing to make this movement of like, you can live a happy and healthy lifestyle without restriction. So honestly, it's crazy, but I think my purpose is my job.
Yeah. Well, and your purpose allows you to be good at your job too. It's like, it's made
which is an amazing thing to say. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yes.
So it's special for me to be able to say that.
Yeah, and to have passion for what you're doing because it feels so aligned. It's amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Carlee, so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, so if you're interested in getting any of Carlee's information, it's going to be linked in the description of today's episode. Otherwise, if you would like to connect with me, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, Lemonade, YouTube. I am going to be taking a break from filming videos just because audio feels a little bit more doable and realistic, and I'm more about consistency rather than having a new fancy way of showing the podcast, which is through YouTube. We're just going to stick with audio for a bit, but thank you so much for being here and just being with me through all seasons of life. I appreciate you. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.